The downfall and eventual overthrow of Mobutu Sese Seko, the longest-serving president of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, can be traced back to the influence of one of his smallest neighbors, Rwanda. In 1994, the Congo was home to two distinct Rwandan communities, the Banyawandas and the Banyamulenge. Both occupied the border regions of the country, with the Banyawandas located mainly in North Kivu and the Banyamulenge located in South Kivu. When colonial boundaries were drawn in the late 19th century, many native Rwandans ended up on the Congolese side of the border in Kivu. Also, with the arrival of the Belgian colonizers, numerous Rwandans were forcibly moved to the Congo for manual labor. Another notable wave of Rwandan immigrants, particularly from the Tutsi ethnic group, fled to Congo in 1959, deserting the social revolution that empowered the Hutu in Rwanda. Settling mainly in South Kivu, they assimilated with the native Banyamulenge population, who were also Tutsis. But soon, tensions would develop between these groups, particularly with the Banyawandas and the indigenous Congolese, culminating in a 3-year conflict known as the Kanyawanda War. Upon assuming power in 1965, Mobutu extended citizenship and political rights to the Rwandans residing in the eastern regions. He envisioned that, as a minority, they would help him maintain a tight grip on power and prevent opposition from the more populous ethnic groups in the region. However, in 1981, the Congolese National Assembly passed a restrictive citizenship law that denied the Banyamulenge and Banyawanda citizenship and all political rights, even though many of them had been in the Congo since its borders were drawn. Though never enforced, the law greatly angered individuals of Rwandan descent and contributed to a rising sense of ethnic hatred. In the early 90s, conflict came to the fore again in North Kivu when members of the indigenous Onde and Yanga ethnic group entered the towns of Mtutu, Mtoto, Masisi, and Rutshuru, killing Hutu and Tutsi Banyawandas and burning their houses in the process. A few days before the massacre, the governor of North Kivu, a man by the name of Jean-Pierre Kalumbo Mboho, publicly questioned the nationality of the Banyawandas in his speeches, pledging to use security forces to assist the Onde and the Yanga in eliminating them. Resultingly, the Banyawandas responded to the killings with a round of bloodletting against the Onde, leading to tens of thousands of deaths between March and July 1993. The Banyawandas claimed that the indigenous people never regarded them as Congolese and wanted to chase and exterminate them, and so they continued to agitate for more rights and refused to pay taxes to the local leaders of the Onde ethnic group. At the same time, the Onde feared that the Banyawandas aimed to assert territorial claims in the Kivu region, which they traditionally viewed as part of ancient Rwanda. Consequently, in July 1993, Mobutu traveled to Goma, the capital of North Kivu, and promised to grant citizenship and voting rights to the Banyawandas. He also sacked the provincial governor, replacing him with a man by the name of Christophe Moto Mupenda. Without any shots being fired, Mobutu's presence alone brought apparent calm to North Kivu. Organizing a series of meetings, he allowed an explosive situation to be managed, and tensions in the region soon diminished. But these patient efforts were soon obliterated by an external event so immense that it destabilized the entire Great Lakes region, contributing significantly to the downfall of the Congolese leader. This event was the Rwandan Genocide.
A calamity of such epic proportions, so massive in size and scope, the truth of it is far beyond journalism's reach. 1.5 million Rwandans, nearly 20% of the country's entire population, trying desperately to survive one more day in this relentlessly inhospitable corner of Zaire.
Only a few months after pacification, North Kivu was flooded with over 700,000 Rwanda Hutu refugees who were fleeing the civil war in their country. The level of detail regarding the crisis in Rwanda at the time warrants a video of its own. But to give a bit of context, let's briefly examine what actually happened in Rwanda. Rwanda became an independent nation in 1962, and during its first democratic elections, the centuries-old ruling class, the Tutsis, a cattle-breeding minority, lost power to the far more numerous Hutu, a traditional farming people. The new Hutu regime had displayed great intolerance to the Tutsis, and as a result, many of them fled to neighboring countries like Burundi, Uganda, and the Congo. In exile, they formed the Rwandan Patriotic Front, the RPF, and began to plan an invasion of Rwanda and the overthrow of the Hutu regime. Starting in October 1990, the RPF, led by a man by the name of Fred Kema, began to cross the Rwandan border, initiating a full-blown civil war in Rwanda. Unfortunately, on the second day of the invasion, Rwigema was shot dead under unclear circumstances. The death of their leader threw the RPF into confusion, and by the end of the month, they were pushed back into the far northeast corner of the country. The next leader of the RPF was Paul Kagame. He took command of about 2,000 troops and began another invasion in 1991. For the next year, they waged a hit-and-run guerrilla war, capturing some border areas but not making significant gains against the Rwandan army, who had assistance from the French and the Congolese troops. Subsequently, a ceasefire between the two parties was announced in 1992, following the formation of a multi-party coalition government in Kigali, Rwanda. This made provisions for negotiations and peace talks, which took place in Arusha, Tanzania. The resulting agreement, called the Arusha Accords, was signed in August 1993. To the onlookers, it looked like peace would finally be restored in Rwanda after a war that had claimed the lives of an estimated 20,000 people between 1990 and 1994. However, internally, these attacks had created so much hatred among the Hutu population toward the Tutsis. On the 6th of April 1994, a plane carrying Rwanda's Hutu president Yovena Habyarimana and the president of Burundi was shot down in Kigali under unclear circumstances, resulting in the deaths of all passengers on board. Consequently, a military committee led by Colonel Theoneste Bagosora took immediate control of the country. Accusing the RPF of orchestrating the attack, they began a massive campaign to eliminate the entire Tutsi population and the moderate Hutus from Rwanda, thus beginning the Rwandan Genocide. For approximately 100 days, an estimated 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed. Eventually, by the end of July, the RPF succeeded in overrunning the country, defeating the Rwandan army and overthrowing the Hutu regime. This sparked a massive exodus of Rwandans into neighboring countries, leading to one of the largest refugee crises in Africa, known as the Great Lakes Refugee Crisis. Amongst the refugees were Tutsis fleeing the genocide, as well as over 1 million Hutus escaping the subsequent incursions from the RPF. While over 200,000 people fled to Burundi and up to 500,000 in Tanzania, approximately 1.5 million refugees ended up in eastern Congo. President Mobutu had granted permission to lodge the refugees in his country. Most of them arrived in North Kivu, in and around the city of Goma and to a lesser extent at Bukavu in South Kivu. Their arrival completely upset the demographic situation in the country. Prominent amongst the Hutu refugees were the genocidaries themselves, which included elements of the former Rwandan army and the extremist Hutu militia known as the Interahamwe. Now in the Congo, there are two major objectives: the recapture of Rwanda and the complete extermination of the Tutsi population. Soon, the Hutu genocidaries initiated attacks against the new RPF regime in Rwanda. Kagame saw this as a serious security threat, and given Mobutu's inability to halt the genocidaries, he resolved to take action.
Somebody made a very big mistake and ordered whoever did it without order and spent some hours sharing our territory in Cyangugu and killed people and wounded others. That has got its own consequences, of course. Yes. I cannot be specific about or detailed in the kind of response that is going to be, but certainly, logically, that means if you slap me in the face, before I hit back, I've got to fight. I may not hit in the face, I may hit somewhere else, so I have to think and see where I'm going to hit. There's no question about it. Yes.
Contrary to North Kivu, South Kivu had remained relatively quiet. However, the influx of over 500,000 Rwandans in mid-1994 would undeniably destabilize the region. In early 1996, the Banyamulenge population in South Kivu came under immense attack from the native Congolese after the deputy governor of the province ordered their repatriation. At the same time, Rwanda was fully preparing the ground for an invasion of the Congo from South Kivu. Examining the unrest in the region, Kagame began to recruit and train about 2,000 Banyamulenge rebels in northwest Burundi to infiltrate the refugee camps in the Congo and eliminate the remaining perpetrators of the Rwandan genocide. At the head of the invasionary force was the Rwandan officer James Kabarebe. He was one of Kagame's most trusted men. In the coming months, these rebels, reinforced by soldiers from the Rwandan Patriotic Army, launched the Banyamulenge Rebellion. Facing a disorganized and unmotivated Congolese army, the Banyamulenge rebels began shelling major refugee camps in South Kivu, resulting in many casualties. Soon, the rebellion quickly expanded into the already volatile province of North Kivu. Although these attacks were initially perceived as a rebellion, the RPF's decision to target refugee camps suggested that this was more than just a rebellion, and rather it was an extension of the Rwandan civil war into Congolese territory. However, the rebellion did not remain Tutsi dominated for too long. You see, Mobutu's kleptocratic and dictatorial rule created enemies in virtually all sectors of the Congolese society. When he came to power in 1965, his regime enjoyed support from the United States because of his anti-communist stance, but his totalitarian rule and corrupt policies brought the Congo to ruins. Following the end of the Cold War in 1991, United States support for Mobutu was at an all-time low. Seeing this, he tried to democratize the country, but ultimately resulted in a political crisis because of his unwillingness to yield power and implement broad reforms. The situation of the country now created a weak central state, and even though the Congolese leader made numerous attempts to surmount the massive attacks from the rebels, he possessed neither the military capability to halt them nor the political capital to attract international assistance. As a result, the Banyamulenge rebellion benefited from massive public support and grew to be a general revolution rather than a mere uprising. Furthermore, the rebellion also encouraged opposition groups and separatists throughout the country. Soon, with the backing of the RPF, the Banyamulenge rebels and non-Tutsi militias in the Congo coalesced and formed the Alliance of Democratic Forces for the Liberation of the Congo, AFDL. Its leader and spokesman was a man by the name of Laurent Désiré Kabila, who had been a long-time opponent of Mobutu's government. Other notable leaders of the AFDL include Deogratias Bogera, Osem Musasu Nindaga, and Andre Kesase Ungando. With the formation of the AFDL, the rebellion's main objective now shifted to the overthrow of Mobutu Sese Seko. As the rebellion progressed, Kabila recruited and trained a lot of young Congolese boys in their teens who were often referred to as the Kadogos, meaning child soldiers. Dressed in loose-fitting uniforms and sturdy black rubber boots, they were convinced that they were now the new liberators of their country. On the 20th of October 1996, the AFDL captured the city of Uvira in the province of South Kivu. 2 days later, they seized control of Bukavu, the capital city of the province. Archbishop Christophe Muzerinwa, the revered Archbishop of Bukavu, was one of the prominent figures killed during the incursions of the city. Known for his vocal opposition to the Rwandan invasion and his unwavering support for human rights, his death was a significant loss. In November, the cities of Goma, Masisi, and Butembo fell to the rebels following the brutal massacres of tens of thousands of Hutu refugees in their camps. In most cases, the massacres were committed by the RPF and their Banyamulenge allies, but much less by the AFDL. Kabila was majorly concerned with the overthrow of Mobutu and had no particular interest in the extermination of the Rwandan refugees, particularly the unarmed ones. Meanwhile, the town of Kasindi saw the prominent entry of the Ugandan army into the conflict. The Ugandan president, Yoweri Museveni, had been a close ally of Kagame and supported the RPF's invasion of the Congo from the very beginning. They took the city of Kasindi, opening the way to the town of Beni. In December, the AFDL captured the city of Bunia, and by the end of 1996, they had complete control of the two Kivus. On the 6th of January 1997, Andre Kesase Ungando, one of the leaders of the AFDL, was murdered under mysterious circumstances. Many claimed that he was targeted by the RPF due to its outspoken views regarding the strong Rwandan presence within the AFDL, while others alleged that he was killed by Kabila because he opposed him. The following month saw the entry of Angola into the conflict. The MPLA government in Angola had become wary of Mobutu's support of UNITA, a well-known rebel group in the country, and as a result, they decided to take the necessary action by joining the AFDL. Similarly, the remnant of the Katangese gendarmes, a rebel group previously exiled after 2 unsuccessful attempts to invade the Congo, also aligned with the AFDL. Their entry caused the rebellion to pick up speed. Together, they captured the city of Wassa on January the 25th, followed by Isiro on February the 10th. Later that month, two groups left Bukavu, proceeding south and west. Consequently, the city of Kindu, the capital of the Maniema province, fell on the 3rd of March, followed by Kalamian and Kamina in the south. The next to fall was Kisangani, the capital of the Oriental province. With assistance from the Katangese gendarmes who arrived from Isiro and joined forces with the troops advancing from Goma, the city was captured on the 15th of March. In April, significant cities such as Bunjimayi, Kananga, and Lubumbashi fell to the rebels. That same month, the Angola army crossed the border and seized control of Shikapa before advancing to capture the town of Kikwit. By so doing, they positioned themselves as the closest rebel force to the Congolese capital of Kinshasa. In retrospect, the Congolese army was now a mirror of its former self. When confronted by the rapidly advancing rebel troops, they resorted in firing all their ammunition before hastily shedding their uniforms and fleeing the scene. In the face of repeated losses, Mobutu appointed General Donatien Mahile Bukongo as the defense minister and chief of army staff. The general tried to reconstruct the army by improving equipment, discipline, and morale, but these efforts proved futile as the AFDL was swiftly closing in on the Congolese capital. Mobutu also made use of foreign soldiers and mercenaries alongside the UNITA rebels from Angola. However, most of the foreign troops pulled out after the fall of Bunia.
The chief is the chief. He is the eagle who flies high and cannot be touched by the spit of the toad.
During the AFDL offensive, Mobutu spent the majority of his time in Europe undergoing treatment for prostate cancer. Upon returning to Kinshasa, he appeared as a gravely ill man, barely able to walk. Nonetheless, he was greeted by an enormous crowd of sharing compatriots.
Mr. Kabila, what is your opinion about the optimism of the UN and others over the ceasefire and everything else?
What is your next objective?
It is Kinshasa, everybody knows it.
And how long is that going to take? What is stopping you?
3 weeks' time.
Subsequently, on the 4th of May 1997, the United States, in collaboration with the South African President Nelson Mandela, attempted to broker peace between the two warring parties by bringing Mobutu and Kabila together. The two men met aboard a South African naval ship stationed at the port of Point Noir in Congo, Brazzaville. By the end of the meeting, it became evident that the disparities between Mobutu and Kabila were irreconcilable. Kabila showed no inclination towards any resolution other than Mobutu's departure from the Congo, while the Congolese leader insisted on relinquishing power solely through elections. Nevertheless, it was agreed that a new meeting would take place in 10 days. However, on the 13th of May, the day before the scheduled meeting, Kabila made it clear that he had no interest in a negotiated settlement and insisted that power be directly transferred to the AFDL. As a result, he failed to show up for the meeting. Meanwhile, on that very day, the AFDL took the city of Bandaka, the capital of the Equatorial Province, and prepared a final assault on Kinshasa. Previously, the Angolan troops had captured the town of Kengen, located approximately 100 kilometers east of Kinshasa, where they encountered elements of the UNITA rebels. They were now planning to link up with troops from the AFDL advancing from Bandaka for their final assault on Kinshasa. The Congolese capital was about to fall. Subsequently, in the early hours of Friday the 16th of May, Mobutu fled Kinshasa, arriving at his palace in Gbadolit. The Congolese capital now faced the looming threat of complete anarchy. The next 24 hours would prove decisive. In Kinshasa, a city of millions, what everyone feared was a potential descent into chaos. As a result, the Congolese Minister of Defense, General Mahile, reached out to the AFDL in an attempt to broker peace. Later that evening, he arrived at Kamchachi, where Mobutu's last supporters had entrenched themselves. Amongst them was the president's son, Colonel Kongolu Mobutu. When the general tried to convince them to forgo all the plundering and surrender to the AFDL, they saw him as a turncoat officer and shot him dead. Afterward, Kongolu reportedly scoured Kinshasa for those he believed had betrayed his father and had them killed, before changing into civilian clothes and fleeing to Brazzaville. Meanwhile, in Gbadolit, Mobutu did not have the time to catch his breath, as he was soon forced to flee to Togo after troops from the AFDL had threatened to take over the region's airport. Subsequently, on the 17th of May 1997, the AFDL officially entered the capital and held all key positions in the city. Mobutu Sese Seko, the longest-serving Congolese leader, had just been overthrown. Soon, Kabila held a press conference and pronounced himself as the new leader, marking the end of the First Congo War. By the end of the war, more than 200,000 Hutu refugees, along with tens of thousands of Congolese civilians, had lost their lives. As for Mobutu, he later left Togo for Morocco, where he went into permanent exile. 4 months later, on the 7th of September 1997, surrounded by a few friends and family members, he breathed his last. His son, Kongolu Mobutu, would also die a year later from AIDS. Kabila inherited a staggering national debt of $9.6 billion along with a multitude of skeptics. His fragile alliance with those instrumental in his rise to power would profoundly influence the course of the Congo's history in the years ahead.
I'm very happy. Very happy to succeed. No, I don't know. They were not. According to the report given to me by the generals, everybody was ready to receive orders from me. That is clear.
The jury is still out on Kabila, but he has potential. We should give him a chance.